Am I live? I think I might be live. I do not know how to find out if I'm actually live, but I think I am. I'm pretty sure I'm live. So, folks, it is that time. It is firmware update time. And we are going to make sure that we don't have any other feeds coming in here because we don't want that. How's it going? Anybody out there in live land? So today is a good day because Line 6 has bestowed upon us 3.15, which I think they are calling the 3.20 is not ready yet update. So for those of you who know me, first of all, my name's JB. Welcome to my channel. I do not normally go live, so this is a nice experiment today. And what I wanted to do is to just, review some cool features in the main sound platform that I use for guitar, which is the Line 6 Helix. I've been using it now since 2015 when it first came out, and it's very unusual for an electronic piece of guitar hardware to stay at the cutting edge for 7 years and counting. So it's pretty mind-blowing that it's still going strong, and they keep adding insane great stuff to it. So they just dropped it today, and I'm really quite stoked about it. So I just want to show you what I got here. This guitar is good for this kind of thing because it gets a lot of different sounds. This is a CLF Research Doheny V12 made by G&L Guitars. CLF is part of G&L. This guitar has some great humbucking pickups on it, and they split beautifully into single coils, so you can kind of like go back and forth between the different types of guitar sounds instead of me grabbing a different guitar every time. So, yeah, I definitely wanted to get into some, some new things that are included in Helix that are totally different than stuff that I'm familiar with. And I'm gonna break out the release notes just so that we can, refer to some of this stuff as we go. I think it's important to be able to do that because otherwise we could get quite lost quite quickly. So let me just get this thing sized up so I can read some things off of it. The first big thing, for me, I always go straight to the amps. Turn your voice up, please. Is the voice not loud enough? Sorry, I see a comment from Mark Gregg. Thanks a lot for that, man. I didn't realize that it was too quiet. Is anybody else hearing it like that, where it's not coming in? It's not coming in hot enough? How about that? Is that any better? Let's get some level. Let's see if we can get some level. How about that? Now we got lots of level. I hope it's not too much. How's that for sound level for you guys? Is that okay? Let me know in the comments. And also the guitar. Let's check that. I don't have to have it quite that loud. I got a Sounds Good from All Bent Studios. How is it? Is it okay right now? I can restart this party. And that way maybe later on I can edit this into a coherent edit. goes the guitar. I'll adjust it according to what you guys, okay, all good. Thank you, you guys. I appreciate that very, very much. Okay. So, I do want to dig into some stuff right away about the amp. So I generally gravitate right to the amps. And this time around, we only have one new amp in this update. Usually there's more than one amp, so you know it's going to be a doozy. And boy, is it ever. I've had very limited time with 3.15, but from what I've messed with so far, it's bonkers. So let's just do it. So I'm going to start out on humbuckers, and I'm going to go over to line 6 edit, and hopefully you guys can see this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the new amp, which is spelled VENTOUX, which is French, and I am Canadian. I'm Canadian, but my French is trash. So I had to look it up on YouTube and see how it's really pronounced, and it's pronounced Ventoux. Ventoux. I know nobody's gonna call it Ventoux, but in this video, we're gonna try. Are you guys hearing those little dropouts, or is that just me? Because I'm hearing dropouts that are pretty annoying, and I can try to ignore them if you guys aren't hearing them. But if you guys are hearing them, then I might actually try to fix it. So we'll see about that. All right. Those little dropouts were driving me nuts, so I just tried to change my buffer settings. All right, line 6 edit. Here we go. These are the guts of the Ventoux. The cabinet is the 2x12 mail order cabinet, which is, I think, built by Danelectro. It was built by Danelectro for Sears, and so it was a mail order amp. The Silvertone, and this is the cabinet from the Silvertone, and the sound design engineer, Ben Adrian, decided to throw that on this amp. I think we're good with the dropouts. I just had my buffer really short. It was at 64 samples, which is really, really short. So now we're at 128. So hopefully smooth sailing, right? Live, you know, live is a funny thing. So what I got here is I've got all the settings that Ben had on here. It's the 121 ribbon, and you know, some pretty basic stuff there. I didn't change anything. I think I may have added some early reflections. So now we're going to go into the amp itself. Check this out. That's the amp with a medium sort of amount of drive. And what I want to show you guys is, like, there's a couple of really important settings in here. This HP filter is really key. This amp is based on what he calls a boutique, what does he call it? Coveted boutique amp. And we all know what that probably means. It comes from Dumble territory. And Howard Alexander Dumble just recently left us, and may he rest in peace. He contributed an unbelievable legacy to the world of guitar. So I imagine this is sort of a tribute to Mr. Dumble. And it's an interesting thing that they went the route. Ben said, here, I'm going to read you something that Ben said on here about this amp. He said, this model comes from a physical amp idea that I had a while back. I was going to build it as a tube amp first. There are only so many hours in a day, though. The idea was to create a coveted boutique amp that had a different origin story. Most coveted boutique amps come from modified black panel fenders or modified Marshall circuits. I wanted to do the same thing, but base it on the early 70s orange circuits and the mid-wattage Fender tweed circuits. Now, I heard from a friend who visited Mr. Dumble's studio, and he said that when Dumble would work on your new amp, first he would get you to play through a bunch of classic Tweed circuits to hear how they responded to your playing, and that's kind of how he would calibrate a new amplifier, if you can imagine. So there is a lot of Tweed in the Dumble DNA, regardless of what he's famous for, which is more of building on a 60s black panel bass line, if you want to say. So he also says, Ben says here, Ventoux has a unique topology. In an indirect way, every knob is kind of a gain or drive control. The tone controls adjust the character and or amount of overdrive in those frequencies. So it's a little different. And he suggests to keep the master cranked. So let's go back over here. I've got the master on 10. I've got the drive down. And then I was going to tell you guys about this thing. This HP filter. When you lower it all the way down, whoa, that's distorting. It dumps a lot of bass into the circuit. And it overloads the bass, which I'm accustomed to because I play Mesa Boogie amps, and you kind of have to turn the bass down as the gain goes up. So what we're going to do is we'll bring that high pass filter in because I'm playing on a neck humbucker, and we probably need a little bit of clarity. And I'm going to mute my mic for a second. Thanks, Greg. I wonder if it's too loud or if the voice is too quiet. I mean, you know, guitar amps are louder than people, right? Now, personally, I really go for this kind of circuit. I'm very much into the mid-gain thing, and I love the Dumble ethos in terms of the amp design, and I've only had a chance to play through one, and it was kind of life-changing. So I'm always paying attention when that gets referenced in our amp models. So let's crank up the drive a little bit. Lots of gain. And he says that the mid control gives you a scooped, more black panel referencing kind of mid dip when you turn it down. And when the further up you go, the more it sounds like a Tweed platform, which doesn't really have any tone control. So it gets flatter, and it'll get louder and start to drive it more. There it is. And what I want to do now is, well, we've got the depth up, so we'll talk about depth and presence. Depth and presence on this amp are basically the bass and treble controls, but they're in the power section. So they're not pushing frequencies into the preamp. They're compensating or kind of like dialing in at a later stage. You really hear them. So if you put up this HP filter and you want to bring back some lows, that's how we do it on the boogies, and that's what works here. So we've taken out a lot of bass going into the preamp. And then we're just gonna hear what it sounds like with the drive cranked and the mid control up as well. So I don't know if this translates over YouTube, but what I'm noticing about it is that the notes kind of tend to pop out in a cool way on this amp, which is unusual for a modeled amp. That's one of the challenges, is to get that cool thing where the notes kind of jump out at you and pop out. And it happens on this one, and I love it. So let's keep trucking. You're going to hear this amp the whole time, so let's just move on to some of the other stuff. I think it's kind of cool that Yamaha Guitar Group is bringing in some of the Ampeg stuff. Ampeg, as you probably know, is part of Yamaha now, and so for them to bring in some of the Ampeg circuits is really cool. So the compressor that they're adding is the optocomp, which is Ampeg optocomp. They can actually use the name because it's theirs. So I'm going to engage that. And, you know, I didn't necessarily think that I needed another compressor, but once I started messing with this one, I noticed a few really cool things about it. Let's clean up the amp and make sure we've got some low end. Get those mids back down to where they're under control. All right. So the compressor is on. And here's the thing I noticed about it. It's very controlled. It's got a really kind of sexy high-end kind of sheen to it. There's a bloom that comes a little while later than you think it's going to. And you really notice it when you're playing. It sort of comes a little late, and it blooms right when you think it's going to start dying out. And of course, any compressor is going to do that to some extent, but this one, it's really nice and gooey. It makes you want to play. I think compression is one of those, you know, playing with a compressor is one of those simple pleasures in life that you can indulge in, and then you can still drive home without calling an Uber. You can probably hear my guitar strings over the mic. I don't like that. I think the funk players are going to love this compressor. I could see myself leaning on this compressor a lot in Helix. I think it's a really, really good addition. I like the fact that the compression control is actually a ratio control, which means that it behaves a little differently than some of the other pedals that we have. And, you know, with my limited amount of exposure to it, I just really dig it. Let's hear it with a single coil neck pickup for a second. Beautiful high-end comp. Totally dig it. All right, next up, we got new reverbs, and they are insane. For those of you who have been updating your Helix over the past couple of years, you know that the big moment of, you know, our big reverb moment was when we got the dynamic hall. And sure enough, we've got more of these dynamic reverb models now. Here's the dynamic room. You've been hearing it in the background this whole time, but one cool thing about higher end reverbs is that you can crank them up a lot louder and they're still musical. They still make you want to listen to them. So let's get a tiny bit of drive. All right, so there it is. And we're going to turn that thing up in the mix. This is going to be way louder than you would ever normally want it. That's a room that I just want to hang out in for extended periods of time. So that's really cool. And then let's go to like a shorter sort of tiled bathroom kind of setting. See where I'm going with that? And then if you want a big room, which usually you might switch to a hall or a plate when you go big, but this one sounds really good at a longer setting also. So there you go. That's that one. I could hang out on that for a long time, but I won't because there's a lot more here. So now we're going to go to dynamic plate, which is way longer than I expected. And it's gorgeous. This reverb actually reminds me of the UA reverb, the one that's in my aux box back there. That is just an insane plate. So that's the two new reverbs. There's endless exploration and experimentation to be done with those. I will show you one thing, which is that you don't have to bring it up very long to get into serious ambient territory. Holy smokes, that sounds good. So that's that. Then I'm going to try to keep things moving here, really, so that it doesn't take forever. But I just am really enjoying these new sounds. So next up, I'm going to go and I'm going to show you this chorus. I have a confession that I have to share with you. I'm not a chorus guy. I think maybe I spent too long in the 80s when I was growing up, and I kind of loved it when chorus pedals went out of fashion for a long time, and it was kind of like a pedal pariah for many years. Nobody had one on their board, and I always kind of liked the sound better when nobody was using chorus, but now it's back. People are digging chorus again, and I have to come to terms with the fact that some of my favorite guitar players actually overused it in an awesome way. Like the Police, obviously, Andy Summers, the Pretenders. There's so many examples of records where you wouldn't take the chorus off to save your life. So Purple Rain probably being the ultimate example of what I'm talking about, or Walking on the Moon, or one of those. So having said that, I feel comfortable and safe enough in this environment to try to enjoy a chorus pedal and indulge myself. I've got it in stereo, of course. And I'm going to go single coil. And I'm just going to play. I'm going to leave the compressor on because, you know, why not, right? Just because we can. And let's just hear this thing. Hard to get mad at that. I don't know if it'll ever be my thing, but it's pretty awesome. It's very swirly and very stereo. If you guys are listening with headphones, you know what I'm talking about. Pretty epic. So, I have to say, Ampeg Liquifier is a great choice to put in here. If I ever do use a chorus, there's a good chance it'll be this one, because it is really, really fun to play. And I know, you know, we all have our own little funny quirks and prejudices when it comes to stuff. So maybe I just need to like get over myself and enjoy chorus once in a while. You know, turn on a blue light late at night and just like play some gooey chords, just swirl around. Like I said, the simple pleasures of life. All right, next up is a very important effect. They have put ADT in the Helix. So, auto double tracking, ADT. It's a really important effect. As you guys probably know, the Beatles sort of originated it. Their engineer, Jeff Emmerich, and the other engineers there at Abbey Road and EMI were trying to figure out a way for them to double track without having to go back and actually double track vocals and stuff. So they designed this convoluted, you know, what's the name? Rube Goldberg machine, sort of multiple tape decks, slightly offset to get you a double tracked sound. And I use the Waves plugin, the Abbey Road ADT plugin, all the time for this kind of thing. And now we have it in our Helix, which is extremely cool. So let's hear it. By the way, it's in stereo again. So if you come down here and look what I did, I took deck 1, the tape deck number 1, put it all the way to the left, tape deck number 2 all the way to the right. I put the wow and flutter controls pretty high because they've got them. They're really subtle in this particular effect. I've got saturation up a little bit because when we used to record a tape, we would always try to distort the tape a little bit on guitar, but not so much where it sounds like a distortion effect. So I've got a little bit of saturation. I've got the 2 decks pretty similar in terms of, hey, Sheldon, what's up, man? I got to up my game now. Now that I know you're in the room, it's making me nervous. Deck 1 and deck 2, a lot of the effects, a lot of the parameters in this particular effect are only for deck 2. So deck 1 is sort of looked at as more of the stable one, and then deck 2 is the one that wavers a little more. So the mod effects and some of this stuff are more, they're happening to deck 2 to differentiate the two of them. So check this out. If you're in headphones, you'll really hear this. It just sounds like I had a really good night and my double tracking was extremely accurate that day. Let's get this video demonetized. I'll sing this. I don't mind you coming here and wasting all my time, 'cause when you're standing oh so near, I kinda lose my mind. Yeah, you gotta love that note. Anyway, the point is that it actually sounds right. It sounds like double tracking. All these different parameters are real subtle, and that's because the goal isn't to push this effect into wild new territory, but more to get an accurate representation of ADT, which is a really specific thing. So what else can I play for you guys? There is one parameter you need to know about. When you get down here, there's low cut, there's high cut, there's a texture control, which kind of exaggerates the saturation. I'm not going to get too deep into that. I mean, if you hear it, it's real obvious. It gets real distorted on one side, so you can use that to differentiate the guitars. But I prefer them to be almost exactly the same. But the one I want to tell you about is this last parameter down here, our second last, envelope threshold. Envelope threshold takes deck 2 and slightly changes the delay according to your pick attack. So it takes it a little bit out of tune and wavers a little more. But again, I like it subtle. So let's get some distortion on the amp. Turn off my mic. Also, if you're doing melodies, like if you're doing melodies that aren't too noodly, like they're a little more like I'm trying to think of a good one here. Like off this old Coldplay record, there's this great guitar thing that goes. The ADT is doing a cool thing with that. It's making it sound like we recorded the part twice, which is the whole point. And what I like about this is that it doesn't sound like chorus. And I'm not just saying that because of my issues about chorus, but it shouldn't. It should sound like two normal guitars perfectly double tracked. That's pretty close to what we're getting. So also, because it's tape, it's coloring your signal. So you know we already have a plugin in here. What's it called? A plugin. It's not a plugin. It's an effect called, does anybody know what this is called? It's called Double Take. The old one's called Double Take, and that's a pretty recent addition to Helix. The reason ADT is different than Double Take is because it's actually adding tape sound to it. It's adding saturation and coloring your signal. So it's not like a pristine, super clean double. It's a little more of a flavor effect that you would expect from the late 60s. So that's ADT. Moving right along, we've got this guy, which is called, Greg L666 says, I've been emulating DT in a couple of patches with delays, and this is so much better. I hear you, man. I have done that as well. And, when they added the recent thing, the tape emulation effect, it actually got easier to get this sound. But this is way better because it just seems dialed in to work. I would suggest to you guys to go in there and here, let me show you again. Get these guys panned hard left and right. Put it in stereo, obviously, and then go up here and save that as your user default. And the reason you want to do that is because when you open it up the next time, they're already going to be panned hard left and right, and any other settings that you do in here that are kind of go-tos, they just come up. So that is ADT, and I love it. Okay, Heliosphere or Heliosphere. Which one is it? Who cares? It's a delay, but the delays have reverb on them. So here's another one that you could create on a parallel chain by adding reverb to your tape. I mean to your delay repeats, but instead it's already in there, and I'll show you what it sounds like. So you get a dry note, and then the delays have reverb. Fantastic. You hear how crazy that gets? It's like, you know, a lot of texture, a lot of things are happening with your delays. For more ambient sounds, this is killer. It's really nice not to have to create a parallel chain to get these kind of complex delays, because you might already have a parallel chain for something else, like a fuzz pedal that you want clean signal shining through it or whatever the heck. You have to make a parallel chain to create this kind of thing normally, but no longer. So it just unexpectedly kind of blossoms into this whole thing. So that's that one. The next delay is called criss-cross. And the whole like feature of this one is that the two independent delay lines are feeding back into each other. So you're getting this. They're kind of ping-ponging and feeding back on both sides. So that's cool. What I see myself using that for is things like that, like rhythmic delay type of things, sort of U2-ish. But here's what I want to say about this one. This might also be just a good go-to delay to use all the time for your normal digital delay stuff. And the reason I say that is because if you go in here and look at these parameters, it has way more tweakability than a normal delay has. It has, obviously it has mod rate, mod depth. Those modulation parameters are on lots of our delays. But this one lets you pick between a sine and a triangle shape for that modulation. That's unusual already. And the next thing you'll see is bit depth and sample rate. So that means you can actually get lo-fi digital delay out of this, similar to the legacy one, which is kind of my favorite old legacy delay, which is called lo-fi. But that one wasn't in stereo. That was a mono delay. So you had to make two of them and do a whole thing if you wanted to do stereo. So now we can get some of these lo-fi sounds on this one, which is a full-featured dual delay. I don't know if you guys can tell, but it's kind of grungy back there. I keep forgetting to turn my mic off, so you guys probably hearing my guitar strings a lot. So I wouldn't just think of this as the criss-cross effect. I would also think of it as just a good general go-to delay if you want to get into that lo-fi. If you want to start bit crushing your delays and if you want to try different feelings to the modulation and stuff like that. It's two discrete things, and they start feeding back. Very cool thing. Now we're kind of getting to the end here, and the last couple of things that we have are a little harder to describe. So I think what I'll do with this Tessellator delay is I'm just gonna step on the pedal and kind of see what the guitar does, because it's going to create a sequence that takes place over time. And then what I did with it is I added a lot of first of all, I stretched the timeout. I put the boomerang effect on, and I put on the direction parameter over here. You're going to see that instead of just forward or reverse, I have forward/reverse. So you're going to hear my sequence go, then you're going to hear it go backwards. Couple things you're hearing here. The high pass filter and low pass filter is coming and going. You hear how it gets progressively more lo-fi? The reason for that is because whatever you set on those, it doesn't happen right away. It happens as the sequence goes. So you're actually setting target filter settings that your sequence is eventually going to get to. And then if you put forward and reverse, it starts to undo itself and come back to the full unfiltered sound. I don't know if any of that made sense, but that's what's happening. That's Tessellator. I am 100% sure that I'm underutilizing it here. So there's about a zillion things that you could do with that. And for the very last one, we've got this guy called ratchet. And what that does is just creates a much more, okay, Tessellator takes the signal before you hit the button and loops that. Ratchet takes a little piece of time, according to how much delay time you have, and loops what happens after you press. So if I hit the switch, I'm gonna get a little pattern here. I mean, that's as simple as it gets, but let's just say we wanted to do something with that. So it's A. Just a nice little repeating thing. I'll do it again. So that must be my delay time. So if you speed it up, you get more. I imagine this would go really well with more staccato type stuff. Oh, that's kind of cool. Just to give yourself ideas, just to have nice little looping patterns that you can then mess with. And the fact that they're a little bit unpredictable is part of the charm of stuff like this. I don't know if you guys have ever checked out like the Chase Bliss Mood or those types of things. You can get lost for hours with stuff like this, and you can end up writing whole songs because a little repeating motif made you, got you inspired and got you doing something. So that's the basic rundown here. I'm sure I have been on this call for a while. Yep, 44 minutes. Anybody still here? Any questions? You want me to try anything out before we sign off? I've had that compressor on the entire time because it's so yummy. I mean, I can't say enough about this amp. don't forget. And then if you dump all that bass in, you get a jazz tone. Take down the presence. Pour all that bass in there. And we probably have a nice clean. Crank up the room a little too high. There it is. He's asking. String Prodigy is asking for a fat Fendery clean. So let's go up there and look at it. We've got the drive down. We've got the high pass filter low so that bass gets in. We're going to take the mid control and take it down and crank up the depth and the presence. So what we're going to get is more of a scooped tone here, okay? Sorry, I wasn't showing you guys HX Edit. So if you want to see what I'm doing, I've got drive low because we're going to go clean. I've got HP filter low because we're going to allow low end into the preamp. We sucked out almost all the mids. We cranked up the highs and the lows in the power amp. Let's do it extreme. Let's just be really, let's get crazy with it. And then we'll see what we do. And then maybe what we'll do with the compressor is we'll put it on, but we'll drop the mix down and turn up the level so that we're only getting a little compression in the background, if that makes any sense. So that was all done blind, so we don't know if it's going to sound any good. So now I'm going to try and play like a Cornell Dupree lick and see if it is convincing. Ah. Too much gain. Still too much. Sounds good. So you're hearing it's a pretty extreme. I should take that depth down and the presence a little bit. There it is. Drop the drive a bit. Got to turn my mic off. And we'll drop the, oh, he likes it, you guys. Stingray Prodigy digs it. Yes. Victory. I like it too. I mean, especially considering that we don't know what we're doing. We're flying half blind here. But, you know, if you want a little more clarity, you notice how the low end is breaking up on the neck humbucker. If you bring up that HP filter and bring up the depth, you're adding your bass later on in the chain. So it's going to be cleaner. It's not going to have quite as much of that grit. So I'm going to play the part a little harder so that we can really hear it. Now for some single coil. So check this out. What I'll do is that I'll turn my mic off, and then we'll add in more of that low on the front end because of the thinner single coil sound. I know I could get this a lot closer, but you can tell that we're getting somewhere. Too much presence for the single coils, guys. There we go. I think it does it really, really well. I can't wait to get really good at programming this amp. There's a very good chance it becomes a go-to for me, because I'm crazy about that sound. I really got into the Fullerton amp. I really got into the Princeton, and this one is sort of completing that collection, if you will. And it's insanely versatile, and I don't know, you guys. I just think they're killing it. They are killing the game. And, I got to talk to you guys about my chorus issues. And, well, okay, String Prodigy says, how many guys on the gear page are going to call this a dumble? I don't know if you were here at the beginning, String Prodigy, but I was talking about how in the actual manual or the release notes, he talks about it being a coveted boutique amp with we know what that means. I don't think this is based on a train wreck. It's based on a dumble. And the truth is that there is a lot of Tweed heritage and lineage in the dumble amps. So I don't think they'd actually be that wrong. They're going to call it a dumble. And even though it isn't actually a dumble, because if it was, Ben would have emulated an actual dumble amp. He didn't do that. It's more like he went through the same process to try to get to that sound, knowing what we know about the history of those amps and how, the reason why everybody loves them, and taking a little bit of a different route, because he said that some of this stuff isn't even possible. One of the things he said is that where did he say this? It's in the thing. It says Ventoux, I never know how to say it. Ventoux's master volume exists in an impossible place for a physical amp. Generally, you'll want to leave this at 10, like a vintage amp with no master volume. So he's obviously not, he's not beholden to the dumble sound. He's not having to reference it exactly and try to emulate it the way you would if you were calling it a dumble. But that's definitely part of the DNA here for sure. So, if they say that on the gear page, that's okay. It's not that far off. Actually, it's even a little further off on the litigator, but the litigator can get dumble sounds. And, I had a whole life-changing experience playing a dumble one time, and it really stuck with me. So I love it when modelers chase that sound, because whether they succeed or fail, if they get me anywhere closer to the ballpark, it's all good. And as you can see, I am a fan. I even have an old school Zen drive. So that's it for today, you guys. Unless you guys got anything else, we are good to go. And I am very, very grateful for anybody watching this, any comments. This is my first time going live on here, so it's all a bit of a learning experience and trying to get the audio mix correct and all that different stuff. But he says, fair enough, man. See, it's better when we all just throw our ideas in the pot and let them, marinate and see what happens. But it's good to see Sheldon out here, and I don't know if I'm going to keep this posted on YouTube or not, but I just appreciate you guys showing up, and please subscribe to my channel. Check out some of the other videos. I do this thing called rock-splaining, where I dive into some really good, like I did a Jimmy Page thing that turned into this 2 week distraction in my life, this huge deep dive. And I had a great time actually doing it, but it was insane. And I do a bunch of other stuff like that. So go check out the other things on my channel. And if you're curious about the music that I'm doing, go to look up on YouTube, look up Dig Infinity, or go to your streaming services and look up Dig Infinity. I have a power trio in Los Angeles that's doing kind of a groove rock experience that I think you guys might actually really dig. So, dig, get it? Infinity. Anyway, I'm out.